Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Michael Levitt, Chief Burnout Officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Please enjoy Michael Levitt. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm here with Michael Levitt, Chief Burnout Officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Welcome to the show.
Great to be with you today. Really looking forward to our chat.
I am too. Before we dive into the world of creativity, why don't you let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, as you introduced me, I'm the founder and Chief Burnout Officer. That title came to me in the shower, by the way, of the
Love it.
Breakfast Leadership Network. Actually, the name Breakfast Leadership came to me in the shower too. So if I need to come up with an idea, it's like, and I don't do this like in meetings with teams or something. Excuse me, I need to go take a shower so I can get clear on this. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, for me to shower from time to time, but yeah, the organization launched it almost a decade ago, which is kind of alarming that it's been that long. But I started it because I was just seeing way too many people burning out. And this was 2015, 2016. And of course, we know with the pandemic and everything else that's transpired, burnout continues to be a huge challenge. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter what sector, doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter age, doesn't it burnout doesn't care. Burnout is that ultimate unbiased. It doesn't discriminate. It wreaks havoc in a lot of people's lives. So I had my own burnout journey back in 2009 and 10. And after recovering from all that had transpired that year, and recovered and rebuilt my life basically. And before I continue, if you're burned out, you don't need to rebuild your life. At least the majority of people I've encountered don't. A couple adjustments here and there. But in my situation, the way that I was living, I needed a rebuild. So, and I did. And then after doing that, I kind of looked around and went, ooh, wow, I guess I'm not the only one that is going through this. So I decided, okay, what can I do about this? Because I've
Mm.
experienced it, I've recovered from it. Now, what can I do to help others? And that's kind of how the organization was born. Do a ton of writing, ton of speaking, host my own show, which I've been doing that since 2017. So that's been a blast. And just trying to live my best life day after day.
I love it. Well, thank you for working to support burnout in this world because it is, in and of itself, an epidemic that we're all trying to navigate. I'm curious, for listeners who have heard the phrase burnout over
Mhm.
and over and over, if you wouldn't mind teasing it apart a little bit so we really understand what does it mean when someone says I'm burnt out or is notified you're experiencing burnout.
Yeah, our good friends at the World Health Organization, who we've heard from quite a bit over these last 5 years,
Mhm.
prior to all the fun that they had starting in 2020, it actually issued what they call an ICD code. So if you work in healthcare or sciences, you know that an ICD code is usually it's a disaster, not disaster. Well, actually, burnout is a disaster. It's a
A
disease. Yeah,
diagnosis, yeah.
yeah, it's a disease registry code. Now, they
Mhm.
didn't classify burnout as a disease.
Mhm.
They classified it as a workplace phenomenon. And burnout, and I'm going to paraphrase their definition, is when you are under prolonged and underdressed stress. You're fatigued mentally, physically, emotionally. You can barely get anything done. Life's
Mhm.
overwhelming for you. Um,
Mhm.
so when I'm in a stage or somewhere and I ask people, okay, does that resonate with anybody? Usually everybody their hands go way up. And it's like, okay, all right then. This seems to be a common challenge. So you're not alone. So congratulations, you're not on an island, although sometimes we feel that way. But what I find is it's just, and a lot of people ask me this question. They'll say, well, it sounds a lot like depression.
Mhm.
And having both in my life. I've been
Mm-hmm.
clinically diagnosed as having depression and
Mm-hmm.
going through burnout. There are a ton of similarities. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest difference, from my vantage point, is when you're clinically depressed and it's really bad. Um, you really can't do anything. You're frozen.
Yeah.
You're just crying. You're just balled up. Just you don't want to do anything. When you're burned out, you still do things.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, some way, you're on autopilot, but you're just going through the motions. And I
Mm-hmm.
see that time and time again, especially in the workplace. And that's where the World Health Organization has focused a lot of their attention is in the workplace. However, ironically, burnout, the term burnout came from Dr. Herbert Freudenberger. He wrote a book that was published in 1980, 80, titled Burnout. And his research, it was work driven, but it was more towards those that were working in the care industry. So caretakers,
Mm-hmm.
nurses,
Yeah.
caregivers, which we see a lot of, and I know
Mm-hmm.
during after the pandemic, a lot of us became caregivers for our parents,
Yeah.
because maybe we lost a parent and we had one parent surviving, and my family had to do the same thing with my mom, uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it takes a toll on you,
Yeah.
and but when you're burned out at work, it's tough and it impacts every layer of your life,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens if you're so burned out, you're just going through the motions, you're barely getting anything done, you don't care, you're just kind of eh. So what happens is when you're off of work, you don't feel like doing anything. And that's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's the big warning sign. Because if you normally like going out with friends or watching Netflix or out for dinner, going to the movies or golfing or fishing or hiking or whatever you like doing outside of a workplace, when you stop doing those things because you don't feel like it,
Mm-hmm.
that is the alarm should be going off and saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Uh-oh, there's a big problem here." And I had that in my situation when I was burned out. I just quit doing things I enjoy doing, and
Yeah.
that's a big red flag.
I thank you for breaking it all down and sharing definitions and the red flags. I'm curious to now kind of step into this, creative space, and I imagine the work that you do involves incorporating some creativity into managing burnout and navigating through it. So I'm curious, when you think of being creative, what does it mean to you to be creative?
For me, is just to be in the zone, and anybody that's a creative, no matter what they create, whether they're an artist, a writer, a painter, a singer, maybe they're creative with gardening. They're just anything. We're designed to create things.
Hmm.
And when you are in what I like to call the zone, where you're just in a state of flow, where things just are flowing, there might be some background music in your head that's not, screaming and yelling. It's just, things are just flowing. You feel great. And what happens is ideas, concepts, pattern recognition, all of that is so much easier because you're operating in your optimum state. And when you're burned out, a lot of times that's nowhere to be found. And that's the biggest challenge I see with a lot of people is, I ask them, okay, what's your ideal day look like? If you weren't burned out, what would that day look like?
Hmm.
And they can't think of it if they're really down
Mm.
a rabbit hole. I don't
Hmm.
know. Like, okay, well then we're just gonna take this step by step. We're gonna, basically we're gonna prepare a meal here. We need some spices and ingredients and all of that, but we're gonna just do one ingredient at a time to see if we can get a little bit clearer picture for all of us. Because again, when you're burned out, many times that you feel like you're in a fog, you're just like in a daze. So for creatives, and we've seen this, especially on social media, a lot of the creative individuals and Instagram creators, YouTube video creators, and all that, you see time and time again where they're really successful, growing, and they see, no, I need to take a break because I'm burned out. I'm like,
Mm.
yep, that's what happens. And you see this a lot with people,
Hmm.
from type A personalities or creatives or executives or business owners and all that. They burn out doing something they enjoy doing. And
Yeah.
it's kind of counterintuitive in a way, but what happens is they don't have boundaries around when they're doing it and when they don't. And
Mm.
for driven people, creatives, you're just like in a flow and you're like, I gotta go, gotta go, gotta keep doing it, keep doing it. And you run yourself dry, you run yourself out of gas, and
Hmm.
not intentionally, because you're just having the time of your life. You're having a blast. And all of a sudden you're just depleted. And you're like,
Yeah.
why am I depleted? I just did something that I had an absolute blast on. Why is this wiping me out? So what I find a lot, and this I was guilty of this as well, is I think a lot of people truly don't understand themselves. They have
Mm.
no they have no clue why they do what they do,
Hmm.
why they think the way they think. They're they may know their beliefs and their habits and their policies and procedures and all that stuff and how they operate, but in
Hmm.
many cases they don't really do a deep look into it because a lot of people, for some reason, and this is either self-confidence or self-judging, who knows, but it boils down to a lot of people don't like looking within because maybe there's been some experiences or situations or bad relationships or choices or things like that that takes a toll on them, and they feel upset about it, maybe disappointed in themselves, and we start beating ourselves up, which is the last thing you want to do because life does a good enough job of that. You don't need to do it too. So
Hmm.
a lot of people just don't know themselves,
Yeah.
and they don't want to look. They're afraid. And
Mm.
and I
Hmm.
and I tell them, I said, okay, think about, I asked them this question. It's a trick question. I'll frame it that way. Who do you spend the most time with in your life? Your entire life. Think about it. Who do you spend the most time with? And they'll say, oh, if you've been married a long time, your partner or your kids or maybe your parents or, a coworker because you've worked at the same place for a long time or, your colleagues, whatever.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a long time, but nope, still somebody else a lot longer than that. Well, who? Go look in the mirror. You.
Yeah.
You spend more time with you than you will with anybody else. Uh,
Hmm.
so you got to figure out a way to love yourself. If you don't like yourself, well, let's get to like then we'll work on love. But let's get to
Hmm.
like first. And if you don't like yourself, then let's ask why. But and one of the things that I did when I was healing from my burnout and everything was I did a deep dive and I go, okay, why did I burn out? What happened?
Mm.
And I I didn't have a therapist then,
Hmm.
and I really wish I would have because I think it would have expedited some things.
Yeah.
But for somehow, some way, and I don't know if this was a conversation I had with somebody or if it just was universal or what, but when I was doing that deep dive to try to figure out, why did I burn out? Well, why did I make the decisions I made? I approached it with a childlike curiosity. I
Yeah.
didn't so I was like 5-year-old Mike, just asking questions. And okay, why did you do that? Why did you want to work all those hours? Why didn't you take weekends off? Why did you quit going to the baseball games? You were a season ticket holder. They were already paid for. Why did you quit going? And just, curiosity.
Hmm.
And I was able to kind of flush. I'm like, okay, what was the end goal? What was I trying to prove? Was I trying to stroke my ego, which a lot of times that's what it is. We want
Hmm.
we want to prove our ego, and a lot of times it's we again going back to those people that are driven and creative. We want to create great things for humanity.
Yeah.
Again, not wrong to do that, but
Hmm.
you can't do it 24/7. You just
Right.
can't. We're not wired that way. Even machines that work around the clock have downtime, either
Yeah.
scheduled or something breaks.
Right.
Um, Everything has downtime.
Mm.
So you need to kind of figure out when your on time is and when your downtime should be so you can recover from the damage that we do to ourselves on a daily basis. No matter how healthy we live, how active we are,
Yeah.
we still damage ourselves. So you have to let your body do what it's designed to do and kind of repair that. Try
Hmm.
not to throw too much damage at it, but some days are better than others. And
Sure.
yeah, I probably shouldn't eat that extra slice or extra half of that pizza or whatever your vice is. But,
Sure.
the war between the taste buds and the brain is an ongoing one. It's gone on longer than any human war. That's the original war is,
The
you know, the
internal one.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
internal one between your brain and your gut brain. The gut and your brain's like, oh,
Hmm.
I want, and taste buds are going, I want to eat that. I want to eat that. It's like, I will feel lethargic for a week if I eat that. I want it. I want it. Like, and sometimes much like a little kid that just keeps, I want it. It's like you pick your battles and you give in. You're like, all right, fine, here, eat the pizza.
Sure.
And then
Yeah.
then you feel if you have a lactose intolerance issue or something like that, you eat the pizza, and then of course you're not feeling good. So
Right.
imagine that.
Navigating. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the childlike curiosity questions. I am curious now to hear a little bit about like your childhood, your first experiences with creativity. Is, this asking questions of yourself as this adult with from that child space,
hmm
that what you were like as a kid, or were you just tapping into something that you inherently
I
knew?
I was inquisitive. I don't remember asking a lot of questions. So, if
Hmm.
my parents were still around, I'd ask them that. But
Hmm.
from my from my recollection, I was one where if I didn't know something, I would figure out or ask where I could find out about it, whether it came
Hmm.
from my first career was in accounting, and the reason why was because of a pack of baseball cards that I bought at a country store that was just around the corner from my grandmother's cabin in northern Michigan. And I bought the baseball cards. It has the pictures of the players, of course, on the front. But on the back is their statistics, whether if they're a pitcher, what their earned run averages, wins, and all that kind of stuff. And if they were a hitter, their batting averages. And I was curious because I could see wins and losses. That was fairly easy. But what's ERA, earned run average? Okay, how do they get that? What's that like? So
Hmm.
I did the calculations. I didn't have a calculator, so I had to use, pen and or pencil and paper, and was able. Once I figured that out, I did it again on another card, and I did the same thing for batting average. I'm like, okay, I remember sitting, at the picnic table at my grandma's cabin, crunching all these numbers, and I was, let's see, at that point I would have been 8, so you know playing outside, getting dirty and all that kind of stuff too. But, I
Yeah.
had the analytical side too. So that curiosity and wanting to learn things, created the opportunity to, be an accountant. Now, accounting is not a field that you're supposed to be creative in because creative accounting gets you thrown in jail. So don't do
Sure.
that. But and I said it was my first career, but I don't do it now. It's because I've always had this desire to learn. And
Hmm.
I was a avid reader, so reading to learn, to understand, to see, okay, how can I apply this to help myself, or how can I apply this to help somebody else? And just the other day, I was working with a client, and not I used to work in healthcare too, so very very private. So I got to be very careful on what I say, but
Hmm.
they're going through some um, I want to say self-confidence issues. We'll leave it at that because they've had a relatively recent life change that's
Hmm.
kind of thrown them off a little bit.
Hmm.
So, I had some materials that I'd prepared before. Also, they'd asked a question, I'm like, you know what, I don't know if I have anything on that. So let me, put some things together based on my experiences and all that. So, put together, a quick, how-to type of thing, some
Hmm.
exercises that they could work with to hopefully help them kind of get closer to where they want to be. And, that's where the creativity comes in. It's like, okay, I
Hmm.
can create something. If I don't have it, sure, I can go find one, a copy of it, but it's like, no, I want it to come from me, from my perspective, and also, of course, take into consideration what I know about them.
Yeah.
So it's customized per se to them.
Hmm.
And I find by doing that, it shortens the time frame for many people from where they are to where they want to be. And that's
Hmm.
ultimately what I want to do. I don't want to take shortcuts
Yeah.
because shortcuts means you may have left something undone and then you got to go back to it. And
Mhm. Right.
I don't, I worked with a sales guy years ago, and he used to, which ironically, because salespeople sometimes are accused of not knowing the product they sell and saying, yeah, it'll do everything under the sun, and then they sell it, and then they're bad at support because it would never do that. Who told you that? Gary did. Ugh. But I remember this one sales guy, we were in a meeting and there was a mistake that another salesperson said all that. And And I don't remember why I was brought into the meeting because I didn't have anything to do with me. I think I had another meeting with him afterwards, but he
Mm.
said, "Come sit in here. This will be good for you to hear." I said, "If you make a mistake, that means you're doing it three times." Like, three times? He said, "You did it wrong. The second time is undoing what you did. Then the third time, hopefully you'll do it right. So
Mm.
if you do it right the first time, you're saving yourself doing it a couple extra times."
Mhm.
And I remember that. I'm like, I think I'm going to store this one in memory because I think
Yeah.
this one may be beneficial for me, not to say on a podcast in, end of June in 2025, but just in life. And like, okay, think about this because, we
Yeah.
want to get things done quick, and I'll just put something together real quick and all that. It's like, maybe take the extra couple minutes and then it'll be right and you won't have to worry about fixing it or undoing
Hmm.
it or anything like that. But I
Yeah,
get it. We're all in a rush, Life is going by quick for all of us, and yeah,
absolutely.
and so
It moves quick. And, this, taking the time or slowing things down so that you
mhm,
aren't making mistakes. When we experience burnout, or I imagine that's a really hard thing to
mhm,
slow down, to look
yeah,
at something from a distance or ask those curious questions. For people who are questioning whether they're experiencing burnout or they feel like, having listened to what you shared, yes, I'm experiencing burnout. What are some of the first steps that people can take to navigating that and coming out the other side?
yeah. For me, the exercise I usually use with everybody, unless they're not dealing with the challenges, is one. I ask them, what their sleep hygiene is. How do
Mm,
they sleep?
yeah.
Are they sleeping well, or are they not? And if they're not sleeping well, I said, okay, how long has this been going on? For some people, like my late mother, I don't think she ever slept well in her entire life.
Wow.
There's a lot of reasons why, but I think she just never really slept really well. So,
Hmm.
individuals like that, then there's different situations. But if people that normally sleep okay and all of a sudden over the last, few weeks or months, they're not getting the same kind of sleep, that's a big red flag. So it's like, okay, we got to focus on getting good sleep. So that means, maybe let's look at your sleep routine. What does that look like? Is it
Hmm.
consistent or is it haphazard? Do you bring your smartphone in to your bedroom when you go to sleep? Do you have a television in your bedroom? What's the lighting like?
Hmm.
Because all of these things trick the brain. And the brain thinks, oh, it's not time. That's why everybody talks about blue light on smartphones and all that stuff. It actually tricks your brain to think, okay, it's still time to stay awake.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's why I tell people, as hard as it is, keep the iBinky. That's my brother's nickname for my iPhone because I'm constantly on the thing, So it's like it's my pacifier. It's like, yeah,
Sure.
yeah, it's like my iBinky. I'm sure Apple has that trademark. They should. Um, but if they don't, I'm not going to because it's too close to their naming, and Apple's got a lot more money and attorneys than I do. So
Sure.
Apple can do it. But keep it out of your bedroom and
Mm.
go buy an alarm clock. They still make them. And then also get your room the right temperature for you. Now, if you sleep with someone, it is scientifically and statistically impossible that you will agree on the room temperature. It's just, yeah, it is not going to happen. Okay. So adjust accordingly. But I tell people a lot of times too, and usually around the time of the Super Bowl, I'll say, okay. And they're like, I ask them, especially if they're going through burnout. It's like, all the big TV sales on sale, you get a new upgrade your TV. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, how much you can spend on it? Oh, I'm probably looking at, 1,500, 2,000 bucks. I said, how old's your mattress? I know that's kind
Mm.
of a personal question, but how old's your mattress? Oh, I can't remember when I bought it. Okay. And then I'll ask them the follow-up question. Have you ever gone to a resort or stayed at a really nice hotel somewhere for travel or vacation or something like that, and you slept in a really nice bed? Yeah, oh yeah. What was that like? Oh, it was like sleeping on just the best dream cloud I could ever do. I just slept so good while I was there. You can go buy that exact mattress and the bedding for what you're going to drop on a television.
Mm.
Go invest in the best bedding, sleeping gear you can afford. You will sleep better because when you sleep, your body is repairing the damage we do to ourselves.
Mm,
That from it helps with the acid reflux if you have that, because that your gut is working while you sleep. That's why
mm-hmm,
acid reflux is so bad at night, because your body is
mm-hmm.
breaking down all of that stuff on top of kind of doing all the repairs to what you did.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so focus on getting good sleep, invest in the best pillows and the sheets and all that. If your room isn't completely dark, I'm a big fan of sleep mask. Took a while to get used to them.
Mm,
Now it's like, ugh, these are the best things ever. And they got all kinds of flavors and designs and things like that on those.
mm-hmm.
So, Amazon's got plenty of them. If you need a recommendation, send me a message. I'll send you a couple that I use, and they're great.
Perfect.
But you get good sleep, okay? The
Mm-hmm.
set, of course, we're going to talk about activity, move. Our bodies are designed to move. Now, if you are watching or listening to this and you have mobility issues, that's kind of a rude thing for me to ask.
Mm,
But there's still, unless you can't move anything, there's still ways you can get some physical activity in. So work with a licensed professional, whether it's a healthcare provider or someone that is professionally trained in exercise. Because the last thing you want to do is injure yourself if you haven't been active at all.
yeah.
So get some activity in. I'm going to go with the food thing. So let me get that out of the room. I'm not going to tell you to quit going and ordering fast food. I'm not telling anybody to do that. But I am going to say, and this is not a recommendation, it's a suggestion. I had a food intolerance test done several
Mm,
years ago because I knew I had some
mm-hmm.
insensitives, and I actually have a handful of food allergies.
Mm.
One of them that just gets everybody laughing all the time is I have an allergy to potatoes. It's
Oh,
a full it's a full on allergy.
yeah.
Now, I don't need an EpiPen or anything like that. If someone jams a French fry in my face, I'm not like that. But what happens is depending on how the potato was prepared, I'll get a little bit of inflammation in
Yeah.
nasal passages. So, but what's so funny about that is I'm Irish descent.
Oh,
I'm I'm Irish and I'm allergic to potatoes. I'm like, what deal did my ancestors make that caused this issue? Because like,
right.
come on, so I know that. But
Yeah.
then there's other food intolerances that I have, and the
Mm-hmm.
one that I crack up about the most, and pardon the pun there, is I actually have a slight intolerance to eggs.
Oh,
Now, if you look at my logo and the name of my company,
yes.
breakfast. The logo is an egg, okay?
Yeah.
I'm allergic to my logo, or I have an intolerance to my logo, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to change the name now, but I find that so ironic, and
Yeah.
I'm sure my spirit guides did that on purpose. Like, okay, let's mess with him. All right, we're gonna do that. Yeah, that'll work. We'll give him this great name for his company. He can trademark it and all that stuff. And oh, by the way, he's gonna have an intolerance to it, so he shouldn't eat it. Okay. That's pretty much how my life is. So, but it's all good. But yeah, so if you get good sleep, get some activity in, eat the foods that are right for you, that your body naturally breaks down
Mm-hmm.
without a lot of discomfort or inflammation and things like that, that's giving you a really good fighting chance to be able to manage your stress a little better. Because
Mm-hmm.
prolonged stress is what turns into burnout. You don't go
Yeah.
from zero to burnout. It's
Right.
prolonged, unaddressed stress.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can manage your stress to the best of your ability and keep it minimal or at least in control, then you're not burning out. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to you'll see things, you won't overreact to things as much as so many people are right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying a lot of things that are going on in the world don't require a reaction. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that at all. But I think what's happening is the things that are happening, and they always do. It's the world, it's how we operate. But I think a lot of people, especially since the pandemic, are a lot more short fused than they were before.
Mm.
And I think it's taking a toll on people. And
Yeah.
I see people that are, several years younger than me
Mm-hmm.
that look older than me.
Mm.
And of course, I had, during my burnout in 2009, I had, you know, basically a health event. So I have a
Yeah.
cardiologist, and when I go in for my checkups, which thankfully I don't have to go in very often, but when I go in, I've noticed since when I first started going to, recently, that the age population of the people
Mm,
that are in there has gotten a whole lot younger.
yeah.
And that scares me because it's, you mess with the heart, it's, both figuratively and literally, that can definitely have an impact on uh, every aspect of your life. So
Yeah.
if you're stressing, you got to get that under control. If you need help on getting that under control, reach out because I got all
It's
the
a
tools to
testament
check it.
to all the work that you do and have out
Oh
in the
yeah,
world.
yeah. It's
It's
like, what do
just,
you need? Yeah, exactly. Okay,
yeah.
here's this resource. Here's this resource because I don't want people to burn out.
Yeah.
And the reason being is if people are healthy, that means that the products and services that you and I and
Mm,
everybody watching and listening are better because
hmm.
we're more there when we're working and
Absolutely.
we make better stuff and I want better. I want the best stuff.
Yeah. And I think everyone wants to receive that as well. And thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a treat to chat about burnout and creativity. I have one last question.
Hmm.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
um, Walking on air, I guess, is the first thing that
Ooh.
comes to mind. I feel it's so I can be in my chair.
Hmm.
And I've got a seat cushion. It's an ergonomic chair. I do everything I can because, I had to get physiotherapy many years ago because my neck turning wasn't good. So I said, okay, doc, I'll spend the money. I'll get everything geared up, which is funny because I worked in healthcare and I made sure that all my clinicians and everybody had ergonomic workstations and all that when they saw patients. But I didn't bother to do it for me. That's usually what happens. Um,
Hmm.
but but for me, when I'm in that creative zone, it literally feels like I'm kind of floating a little bit.
Mm.
It's just things flow. It's like, if I'm writing something down, the writing utensil, whether it's a pen or a pencil or the paper, it just flows. It feels good. It's like, wow, it's like I could actually read that writing. That's pretty good. Having worked in healthcare, my writing went to complete crap. I'm
Yeah.
thankful that I'm thankful my late father never saw my notes over the last, decade or so, because if he did, he probably would have checked out even sooner from the stress of what is that? Because he was big on penmanship, and so because he saw my signature once and he went, "What the hell is that?" Like my signature. No, it's
Uh,
not. And
uh,
that was his. You need to fix that. Like, all right, Dad. Um, I never did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the walking on air feeling of what creativity offers. And if
Mhm.
people want to learn more about the work you do and the things you
Mhm.
have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
Best place, just go to breakfastleadership.com. On the main page, there's actually a quick burnout survey, and you can enter it in, and basically it'll give us a score, and we'll just send you a note and some resources and all that. If you want a copy of my book, Burnout Proof, just go to breakfastleadership.com/burnout book. Name and email. I don't need your blood type or phone number or last four digits of your social security number. I don't need any of that stuff. Just name and email, and we'll get you a PDF copy of the book, which goes through all the signs of burnout, what you can do to get out from it. Because again, I don't want anybody burning out. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good for any of us. So I want healthier and happier people because it makes the world better when we are in that state.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing all of your knowledge with us. I absolutely appreciate it. And yeah, it's been great.
Thanks so much. Had a blast.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.